wind howled across the frozen mining planet of Epsilon Ridge, carrying with it the dust of a war long ended. Inside a lonely metal shack stood Sergeant Cole Renner, a man who had survived too much. The years of battle against the alien race called the Zerans had left him alive, but hollow. He once fought with pride, believing in the cause, believing humanity was fighting for survival. But now he couldn't even remember what victory felt like. Cole had been part of the 19th Infantry Division. Deployed in the bloodiest sector of the war, he had seen cities burn, starships explode, and comrades vanish under alien plasma fire. His unit was called the Steel Line, known for holding positions no one else could. But in the last battle, the Zerans ambushed them from beneath the ice, tunneling up like shadows from the frozen ground. Cole had watched helplessly as the creatures ripped through his squad, their armor glowing blue in the dark. He fought until his blaster overheated, until the air smelled of metal and smoke. When it was over, he was the only one left breathing, lying among the bodies of his brothers. The medics called him lucky. Cole called it punishment. He was discharged after the ceasefire, handed a medal he never wore, and sent to a mining outpost far from any city. There he worked as a mechanic, fixing broken machines for miners who didn't care who he was. He liked it that way, where no ranks, no orders, no aliens, only silence. And the hum of old engines each night. He sat by a flickering heater, drinking synthetic whiskey from a dented can. He stared at the flames until faces began to appear. His squad mates, their eyes empty. He whispered their names under his breath. Jackson Lee Torres. But the ghosts never answered. He had built walls inside himself and strong, high walls made of anger and guilt. He hated the Zerans for what they did. He hated the peace treaty that called them allies. And most of all, he hated the part of himself that still remembered them as living beings, not monsters. Outside his shack, the nights were long and cruel. The twin moons painted the snowfields in silver light. The wind screamed through the canyons like the cries of soldiers. Cole tried to sleep, but the dreams always dragged him back to the battlefield. He would wake up soaked in sweat, grabbing his blaster, expecting an attack that never came. One evening, while checking the power relays near the ridge, he noticed something strange, a thin trail of black smoke rising from the East Valley, too far from the mining area. At first he ignored it, assuming it was an old drill vent or a flare, but as night fell, the smoke turned into orange light. Flickering against the snow, something had crashed out there. He cursed under his breath, pulling on his jacket and grabbing his flashlight. The air outside was sharp and biting, cutting through his clothes like blades. He trudged through the snow, boots crunching softly, the wind screaming in his ears. The closer he got, the more he smelled burning metal. And then he saw it, a small ship half buried in the ice, its hull cracked open and glowing faintly blue. Cole froze, his heart pounding. The markings on the side were unmistakable. A Zeran. He gripped his blaster tightly, his body tensing with old hatred. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around. To leave it to burn, he remembered his squad's screams. The way those glowing eyes looked in the dark. Aliens, he thought, always bringing death, but then, through the hiss of escaping steam, he heard a sound, soft and high-pitched. Not a machine, not static, a cry. He stepped closer, the beam of his flashlight cutting through smoke and debris. Inside the wreckage, among twisted metal and shattered glass, he saw movement. A small pod cracked open, glowing faintly from within. Cole aimed his blaster, expecting a trap, but what he saw made him lower it slowly. Inside the pod were three small, living creatures, each no larger than his forearm. They had translucent scales, tiny claws, and wide, frightened eyes that shimmered like blue fire. They were Zeran hatchlings, freshly born, weak and trembling. One of them let out a tiny chirp, almost like a baby bird lost in the cold. Cole's breath caught in his throat. He looked around. The adult Zerans were dead, burned inside the cockpit. The hatchlings were all that remained. He stood there, snow swirling around him, torn between rage and something else. He could end it now, one pull of the trigger. It would be easy. They were aliens, the same kind that killed his brothers. But his hand shook and his finger froze. The smallest hatchling stumbled forward. Falling into the snow, its glow dimmed as it shivered. Chirping weakly, Cole muttered, "Damn it." And before he realized what he was doing, he took off his coat and wrapped the tiny creature inside. The other two chirped louder, sensing warmth. He sighed, exhausted, staring at the wreck once more. Then he whispered bitterly, I must have finally lost it. He carried all 3 hatchlings back to his shack, his heavy boots leaving deep prints in the snow. The wind screamed around him, the sky flashing with distant thunder. As the metal door closed behind him, the heater's orange light filled the room. He laid the hatchlings near the fire, watching them breathe softly, their small bodies reflected in his tired eyes. Cole sat down slowly, whispering to the empty air. Don't get used to it, you little things, he said. Though his voice cracked with something that sounded almost like hope, he didn't know why he saved them. Maybe he was just tired of watching everything die. Maybe, for the first time in years, he wanted to believe something innocent could still live. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, the broken soldier sat beside 3 alien hatchlings. And for the first time since the war, he wasn't completely alone. The storm outside never stopped. Winds beat against the metal walls of Cole's shack like angry hands. Inside, the heater hissed and glowed, casting long orange shadows over the floor. Cole sat on a stool, staring at the 3 tiny hatchlings sleeping on a blanket near the warmth. They looked peaceful. Too peaceful for creatures born from the same race that destroyed his unit. He rubbed his face and muttered, What in all the stars am I doing? He had wrapped them in scraps of old cloth. Their scales shimmered faintly, glowing blue and silver in the firelight. He could see their little chests rise and fall. They were alive, fragile, helpless, and completely unaware of the hate that filled the galaxy. Cole tried to ignore them. He told himself it was temporary, just until the storm ended. Then he'd find a way to send them back, or somewhere far away from him. But when morning came, the sound of soft chirps filled the room. Cole groaned, sitting up from his chair, his back aching. The hatchlings were awake, blinking at him with big, curious eyes. One of them waddled forward. Slipping on the metal floor, it chirped again, higher this time, almost like it was calling him. Cole frowned. You hungry or what? He rummaged through the supply box. Pulling out ration packs, nothing seemed right for alien babies, so he mixed warm water with nutrient paste, the same kind miners used to stay alive during long shifts. He dipped his finger in the mix and held it out cautiously. To his surprise, the smallest hatchling licked it, then chirped happily. Cole blinked. Huh? Guess you're not too different after all. He watched them eat. One by one, the sound of their tiny mouths made him laugh, quietly, and it startled him. It had been years since he'd laughed. The sound felt strange, rusty but good. When one of them sneezed, a little spark of blue light came out of its nostrils. Cole jumped back, nearly spilling the bowl. What the? Your little plasma bombs. The hatchling looked up and squeaked innocently. He sighed. Yeah, cute and dangerous. As the days passed, the storm outside grew worse. Cole couldn't leave even if he wanted to, so he worked in silence and fixing old equipment, repairing heaters, melting snow for water. The hatchlings followed him everywhere. When he moved, they chirped. When he sat, they climbed onto his boots. At night, they slept near the fire, sometimes curling up close to him. He pretended to hate it, but deep down he didn't mind. For the first time in years, the silence of the shack was gone, replaced by tiny sounds of life one evening. As he sat cleaning his blaster, he spoke out loud, though he didn't know why. You know, I used to hate your kind, he said quietly. The hatchlings tilted their heads, listening. You took everything from me. My friends, my home, my peace, he sighed, setting the blaster down. But you didn't do that, did you? Little ones, they chirped softly, and one nuzzled his boot. He smiled sadly. You don't even understand what I'm saying. That night, Cole dreamed again. He was back on the battlefield. Explosions, fire, screams. But this time, instead of soldiers, he saw the hatchlings in the crossfire, crying out for him. He woke up shaking, gasping for air. When he looked down, they were huddled against his arm. Trembling from the noise of thunder outside, he whispered, It's okay. You're safe here. The words surprised him. They didn't sound like something he would say. They sounded like something a father would say. The next morning, he went outside to check the power grid. The snow had piled high, the wind biting his skin. When he returned, he froze in the doorway. The hatchlings were gone. The blanket was empty. Panic hit him faster than he expected. He ran outside, scanning the white landscape, shouting, Hey! Where are you, you little sparks? No answer. He followed the tiny claw marks in the snow. They led toward the ridge, where the wreck of the alien ship still smoked under the ice. When he reached it, his heart almost stopped. The hatchlings were there, gathered near the twisted metal hull, chirping at something inside. Cole moved closer and saw a broken metal orb flickering with blue light. It was a distress beacon and still transmitting. "Damn it," he whispered, realizing the signal could reach orbit. If any Zyran ship picked it up, they'd come looking. And if the human colony detected it first, they'd come with guns. He grabbed the beacon and smashed it against a rock until it sparked out. The hatchlings squeaked in alarm, but he ignored them. Then he crouched down and said, "You can't go there again." "Understand," they blinked at him, confused. Cole sighed. "Of course you don't." He looked at the wrecks, at the burned alien bodies inside, and felt a weight in his chest. He whispered, "Maybe I should have left you there. Maybe that would have been easier." But as one of the hatchlings crawled onto his glove and nuzzled his wrist, he knew that was a lie. That night, as the wind screamed louder than before, he sat by the heater thinking. He knew the distress signal was dangerous. He knew others might already be coming. But when he looked at the sleeping hatchlings, small, warm, alive, he felt something new. A quiet promise forming in his chest. He had failed to protect his brothers. He wasn't going to fail again. He whispered to the fire, "You're not enemies anymore." Then softer, almost ashamed, "You're mine to protect now." Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, the broken soldier sat guard over 3 sleeping hatchlings, and though he didn't notice it yet, the hate in his heart had already begun to melt. The storm finally ended after 3 long days. The snow outside Cole's shack lay heavy and silent, covering the ground like a white grave. Inside, the heater hummed quietly, and the 3 hatchlings played near the corner with a wrench they had stolen from his toolbox. Cole leaned against the wall, arms crossed, pretending to scowl. "You're gonna break my only wrench, you know that," he said. The hatchlings chirped in reply, clearly not caring. One of them slipped and rolled over, and Cole laughed despite himself. He shook his head. "Yeah, real soldiers you are." But outside the warmth of the shack, the world was not so calm. In the distance, hidden by the ice hills, a flicker of light blinked in the sky, and once, twice, then vanished. Someone was watching. Someone had picked up the last seconds of the alien distress signal before Cole destroyed it. That evening, Cole stepped outside to repair a frozen antenna. The cold bit into his skin. The wind sharp enough to cut, he worked quickly, gloved fingers twisting bolts, his breath turning to mist. But as he stood up to leave, something caught his eye. A small red light glowing faintly on the horizon. He froze, his soldier instincts kicking in. That wasn't a star, and it wasn't a miner's beacon. He pulled out his scope and looked closer. Through the drifting snow, he saw movement. A hovering drone. Scanning the ridge, his jaw tightened. "Damn it!" He hurried back inside, slamming the door behind him. The hatchlings squeaked at the noise, startled. Cole moved to the control panel and shut off all outside power, plunging the shack into near darkness. "Quiet," he whispered, crouching by the window. The youngest hatchling tried to crawl onto his shoulder, but he gently pushed it away. "Not now, little one," he muttered, watching the faint red light drift closer. He knew that kind of drone. It wasn't human, the movement was too smooth, too silent. It was Zyran tech, which meant the hatchlings' kin had found the crash site. Or worse, someone else was looking for them. Hours passed before the light faded into the distance. Cole didn't move until dawn broke through the clouds. When the sun rose, painting the snow gold, he stood and looked at the hatchlings. They stared back at him, blinking, innocent and unaware. He sighed. "We can't stay here anymore." Over the next few days, Cole began gathering supplies, fuel cells, food rations, spare parts, and everything he could carry. He started repairing the old transport shuttle buried behind the outpost. It was an ancient mining vessel, rusted and half dead, but with enough work. He could make it fly every night after the hatchlings fell asleep. He worked under dim light, welding, sealing, wiring. Each spark of metal reminded him of battlefields. But this time he wasn't fighting. He was preparing to run. Yet rumors were already spreading through the colony. Miners who passed by the ridge claimed to hear strange noises, soft chirps, glowing lights, small footprints, ghosts they called them. Others whispered something worse. "Zyran." Cole overheard them one afternoon at the trade post. A miner said, "I heard there's something living near the old barracks. Maybe a survivor," another replied. "If it's Zyran, command will pay well for proof." Cole left without a word, jaw clenched, fists tight. When he returned home, the hatchlings ran to him. Chirping happily, he crouched down, forcing a smile. "Hey, troublemakers," he said softly, but his eyes were heavy with worry. He knew the humans would come if they suspected anything, and if the Xyrans arrived first. They might not believe a human could protect their young. That night he sat by the fire, staring into the flames. He thought about his past and about the war, the hatred, the things he'd done. And now he was hiding 3 alien children like they were his own. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this is how I make it right." The next morning, he woke to silence, no chirps, no noise. His heart dropped. He rushed to the corner where they usually slept. Empty. "Not again," he breathed, grabbing his coat and blaster. He stepped outside, scanning the snow. Tiny footprints led toward the mining valley, toward people. He followed the tracks, moving fast. His pulse raced, his breath short in the freezing air. When he crested the ridge, he froze, down below. 2 miners stood near a cargo sled, and between them the 3 hatchlings. The miners laughed as they tried to poke one with a metal rod. "Look at these things. Baby lizards." One said, "Radio command, man. They'll pay for live aliens." The other replied. Cole's vision went red. He stormed down the hill, snow spraying under his boots. "Hey," he roared, voice echoing across the valley. The miners turned, startled. Cole aimed his blaster at the ground between them. "Step away," he said coldly. They raised their hands. "Backing off, I'm easy, soldier." "We didn't mean no harm." "You tell anyone what you saw," Cole growled. "And I'll make sure you regret it." The men nodded, fear in their eyes, and ran, slipping through the snow. Cole knelt beside the hatchlings, checking them over. They chirped softly. Climbing into his arms, he sighed, trembling with both anger and relief. "Don't ever wander off again," he said, voice breaking. He looked toward the horizon. The miners would talk. It was only a matter of time before command came knocking. That night, he packed everything. He strapped fuel tanks to the shuttle and loaded the hatchlings inside. The ship was old, creaking, but it would have to do. As he sat in the pilot's chair, he looked out one last time at the frozen ridge. His voice was quiet but firm. "No more running from the past," he said. He started the engines. The ship roared to life, shaking snow off its wings, but before he could take off, a shadow moved across the windshield. A red targeting light blinked. The same drone. Hovering close, watching, Cole's hand tightened on the controls. This time he wasn't going to hide. This time, the broken soldier was ready to fight for something worth saving. The drone hovered silently above the ridge. Its red eye glowed like a heart that never stopped beating. Cole sat frozen in the pilot's chair, his hand hovering over the throttle. The 3 hatchlings sensed danger, their tiny bodies trembling. Soft chirps rising like frightened whispers. Cole whispered, "Easy now. Stay low." He flicked a switch, cutting the shuttle's lights, plunging the cabin into darkness. The hum of the engines faded, leaving only the howling wind outside. He grabbed his blaster and slipped out through the side hatch, snow crunching beneath his boots. His breath formed small clouds as he scanned the sky. The drone moved slowly, scanning the wreckage field like a hungry predator. Its metallic body glinted under the pale moonlight. Cole crouched behind a snowbank and aimed carefully. He fired one clean shot. The beam hit the drone dead center. Sparks exploded, and it dropped like a dying bird, smoke trailing behind it. For a moment, silence returned, but deep inside, Cole felt no relief. "Where there's one," he muttered. "There's always more." He turned back toward the shuttle, but before he reached it, a voice called out behind him. "Still got good aim." "Sergeant," Cole froze. He knew that voice. Slowly, he turned around. Standing near the wrecked drone was a man in a dark military coat, snow dusting his shoulders. It was Lieutenant Harris, his old commanding officer, the man who once led him through the fire, the same man who left him behind on that frozen battlefield years ago. Cole's jaw tightened. "Harris," he said flatly. The lieutenant smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "Didn't think I'd find you out here," Harris said, stepping closer, his boots crunching in the snow. Cole raised his blaster slightly. "Don't!" Harris stopped, eyes flicking toward the shuttle. "So the rumors were true," he said quietly. "You really are hiding something," Cole didn't answer. But the hatchling's faint chirps echoed from inside the ship. Harris's expression hardened. "Aliens," he said, disgust twisting his mouth. "You've completely lost it." Cole stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. "They're not soldiers. They're children." Harris shook his head slowly. "They're Xyran. Doesn't matter what age. You think they'd show mercy to our kids? You remember what they did at Vega Station? At Red Spire? I remember, Cole said, his eyes cold. That's why I can't let it happen again. To anyone. Harris laughed, a dry, bitter sound. You sound like one of them. I sound like someone who's done killing for the wrong reasons, Cole replied. The wind howled between them. Carrying old ghosts for a moment, neither man moved. Then Harris drew his weapon and a pulse rifle. Military issue, still engraved with their old unit symbol. He aimed it straight at Cole. I can't let this go, he said. Command will want proof. You hand them over now and maybe they'll go easy on you. Cole's voice dropped to a growl. You'll have to shoot me first. Harris's eyes flickered with something. Regret? Maybe or pity. You always were stubborn, he muttered. Then he fired. Cole rolled to the side, the beam slicing through the snow beside him. He fired back, hitting Harris's shoulder, sparks flying from his armor plate. The men circled each other, two ghosts from a dead war, fighting again for reasons neither fully understood. The storm began to rise again, snow whipping around them like ash from burning worlds. Cole ducked behind a rock, shouting, You think this is what they'd want? Our brothers? More killing? Harris fired again, shouting back, They died because of them. You think saving those monsters makes it right? The hatchlings' cries grew louder, frightened by the noise. One of them, the smallest, crawled out of the shuttle. Glowing softly, Harris froze when he saw it. His weapon lowering for a second. The hatchling stared up at him. Trembling, eyes wide and bright, Cole shouted, Don't touch it. But it was too late. The little creature stepped closer. And suddenly a light flashed between them. Not a weapon's flash, but a memory. A faint hum filled the air as images appeared. Not real, but seen in their minds. Cole gasped as he saw what the hatchling showed them. An alien village burning. Siren parents shielding their young from human gunfire. A mother holding her hatchlings as the blast consumed her. The pain. The fear, the same as his own memories from the battlefield. Harris dropped his weapon, shaking. What? What is this? He whispered. The hatchling chirped softly and pressed its small hand to his glove. In that moment, Harris saw not an enemy, but a frightened child. The light faded, leaving only the sound of wind. Cole stood, breathing hard. Harris looked at him, eyes wide with shock. They can show memories, Cole said quietly. They can feel. Harris looked down at the hatchling, then back at Cole. Maybe we were both wrong, he said softly. But before either man could say another word, a blinding explosion ripped through the valley. Cole turned. A second drone crashed down from above, followed by two more. Red lights scanned the snow, locking onto them. The hatchling screamed and ran toward Cole. He scooped them up, shouting, Get to the shuttle! Harris grabbed his rifle, limping but ready. Go! I'll cover you! No, you'll die. Cole yelled. Already did once, Harris said with a grim smile, firing a burst into the nearest drone. Cole ran through the storm, clutching the hatchlings tight. Snow biting his face. Behind him, Harris stood firm, firing again and again until the sky lit up with fire. Cole reached the shuttle and slammed the hatch shut. He powered up the engines, his heart pounding. Through the cockpit glass, he saw Harris. One last salute before the drones overwhelmed him. Then the snow exploded in a wall of light and Harris was gone. Cole whispered through clenched teeth, I won't waste your sacrifice. He grabbed the controls, the engines roaring to life. As the shuttle lifted off, fire reflected in his eyes. The man who once ran from war now flew back into it. Not for orders, not for revenge, but for 3 small lives that had shown him what it meant to be human again. The shuttle roared as it lifted off the frozen ground, snow exploding beneath its thrusters. Cole gripped the controls with trembling hands, every muscle in his body screaming from exhaustion. Behind him, the hatchlings clung to their harnesses, chirping in fear as the ship shook violently. Outside, the night sky was alive with red lights. Siren drones, dozens of them circling like vultures. Cole cursed under his breath. Come on, old girl. Hold together. The shuttle wasn't built for combat. It was an old mining hauler, patched together from scrap. But it was all he had. He pulled the throttle, and the ship burst upward through the clouds. Engines rattling, plasma bolts sliced through the air, missing by inches, lighting up the cabin like thunder. The hatchling screamed, one hiding under the seat, the smallest clutching Cole's boot with tiny claws. He shouted over the noise, Hang on, kids! Just hang on! A warning alarm blared, lock-on detected. Cole looked out the window. One drone was faster than the others, closing in from below, Its red eye flashed as it fired a missile. Cole yanked the controls hard to the left. The shuttle rolled and the missile missed, exploding in a burst of blue flame. The blast still shook them, rattling the panels loose, sparks flying from the ceiling. The ship screamed like a dying animal. Cole's knuckles turned white as he steadied it. Gasping for breath, "Easy, easy," he muttered. "We're not dying today." He slammed a button on the console, releasing a cloud of metallic dust from the ship's vents. The fragments scattered in the sky like glittering snow, confusing the drone's sensors. For a brief moment, the red lights vanished. Cole used the chance to climb higher, through the storm, through the lightning, through the chaos. He could barely see the stars anymore, but he knew where he was going. There was an old communications satellite in orbit, abandoned, but still functioning enough to bounce signals. If he could reach it, maybe he could mask their trail. But the shuttle was bleeding energy. Half the panels were cracked, and the main thruster coughed smoke. He slammed the dashboard in frustration. "Don't you die on me now!" The hatchlings huddled close, their small, glowing eyes watching him. Cole forced a grin. "You ever flown through hell before?" he said softly. They chirped, confused but trusting. That small trust pushed him forward. Minutes turned into hours, or maybe it just felt that way. Cole's vision blurred from the strain. The sky outside shifted from black to deep violet as they broke through the last layers of cloud. But peace didn't come. From behind, 3 more drones appeared. Cutting through the upper atmosphere, they were fast and too fast for the shuttle. Cole slammed the thrusters, the engines screaming in protest. He whispered, "Come on, come on." A plasma bolt grazed the right wing. The ship lurched violently. An alarm screamed, hull breach detected. Cole grabbed the emergency lever and sealed the inner cabin doors. "Hold tight," he shouted. The hatchlings cried out, pressed against the walls as gravity twisted. The shuttle spiraled, spinning out of control, the world outside turning into streaks of fire and ice. Cole fought the controls with everything he had. He could hear Harris's voice in his head. "Never give up the stick, soldier. The ship only crashes when you stop fighting it." He gritted his teeth, yelling, "Not today." He pulled back hard, leveling the shuttle just before it broke apart. Metal groaned, panels fell, and something inside the engine burst with a loud pop. But the ship kept flying, barely. He looked at the hatchlings and terrified but alive. "That's right," he panted. "We're not done yet." Through the windshield, he saw it, the abandoned satellite drifting in orbit, half shattered but still glowing faintly. It was their only hope. Cole turned the ship toward it, engines flickering. He opened the comm system and began rerouting power from his life support. The warning lights blinked red. He was giving the ship everything it had, at the cost of his own oxygen. "Worth it," he whispered. "For them," the hatchlings squeaked nervously as the air thinned. Cole's breathing grew heavy. Slower, he tapped a button, transmitting a coded pulse toward the satellite. If it worked, it would scramble their signal long enough to disappear from Zyron sensors. But the drones were still coming, faster now, red lights growing larger in the window. Cole turned to the hatchlings, his voice weak but steady. "Listen, you've got to be brave now, okay? You'll live. You'll keep flying." He smiled faintly. "That's an order. Soldiers." The hatchlings chirped louder as if they understood. One crawled up to his chest and pressed its forehead against his armor. He felt warmth spread through him, a soft pulse of energy. The glow from their bodies brightened, wrapping him in faint blue light. He didn't understand it, but he felt calm. For the first time since the war, there was no fear, no hate, just peace. The drones fired. A burst of plasma hit the rear of the shuttle, setting it ablaze. Cole slammed the emergency eject for the hatchlings pod. Sending them into space, the pod shot forward. Spinning away toward the satellite, small and fast, he watched it go. A faint trail of blue light fading into the stars. Then another explosion rocked the ship. Cole's head slammed against the console. The world dimmed. His breath fading, he smiled weakly, whispering, "Live. That's all that matters." Outside, the hatchling's pod drifted silently. The tiny creatures pressed their hands to the glass, chirping softly as the shuttle behind them burned. For a moment, the flames looked like sunrise, and through the smoke they saw something. The human soldier, sitting still at the controls, face lit by the fire, eyes closed but peaceful. The man who once hated them had saved them. And in their small alien hearts, a spark of love took root, something that would echo through the stars. Darkness. That was all Cole felt for what seemed like forever. No pain, no sound, only the faint rhythm of a heartbeat somewhere deep inside his chest. He tried to move, but his limbs were heavy. He tried to open his eyes, but light burned through like fire. Then, a voice soft and distant, speaking words he didn't understand. It echoed, melodic and calm. Slowly, his eyes opened. The world around him was no longer metal gray or ice white. It was glowing blue, full of soft light and moving shadows. He blinked, realizing he was lying on a bed made of smooth glass-like material. The air smelled clean, warm, and strangely sweet. Machines hummed quietly beside him, pulsing with gentle waves of color. Cole groaned, trying to sit up immediately. A tall figure stepped forward, alien, yet graceful. Her skin shimmered like crystal. Her eyes glowing faint gold. She was Zyran. Cole froze, his muscles tightening in instinct. The woman raised her hands slowly, palms open. "Peace, human," she said in a soft, trembling voice. "You are safe." Cole's breath came short and ragged. His eyes darted around. He was surrounded by them. 5, maybe 6 Zyrans in white robes. Watching him from a respectful distance, he gritted his teeth. Where am I?" The woman tilted her head, her translator device crackling softly. "You are aboard the Ark vessel Lyrian Dawn," she said. "Our rescue team found your shuttle near the outer rings." He blinked, confused. "The Hatchlings?" He rasped, voice weak. The woman smiled gently. "They are alive," she said. "They would not stop crying until you were brought aboard." Cole exhaled, a long, shaky breath of relief. He sank back into the bed, eyes closing. Alive. "They were alive," he whispered, almost to himself. "You little miracles." When he opened his eyes again, hours had passed. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. Then a familiar sound broke the silence, 3 tiny chirps, light and musical. Cole turned his head and saw them. The Hatchlings, alive and well, standing near the doorway. Their scales gleamed brighter now, their tiny eyes full of joy. When they saw him move, they rushed forward. Climbing onto the bed, chirping loudly, Cole laughed weakly. "Hey, I missed you too." The smallest hatchling pressed its forehead to his hand. Glowing softly, the touch was warm, almost healing. He felt strength returning to his arm where burns had scarred his skin. The alien medic stepped closer, explaining. "They shared their energy with you," she said. "They would not rest until your heart began to beat again." Cole stared at them in disbelief. "They saved me." The medic nodded slowly. "They called to us with their minds. Their song led us through the debris field. Without them, you would have drifted into the void." For a long time, Cole couldn't speak. He looked at the hatchlings, the same creatures he once wanted to abandon in the snow. And now, they had saved his life. His throat tightened. He said softly,
"Guess I owe you more than I can ever repay." Over the next few days,
Cole learned the truth. The war was over, truly over. The peace treaty had expanded beyond the core systems. Zyrans and humans were rebuilding together, though trust came slowly. The Lyrian Dawn was part of that new alliance, a rescue vessel that helped both sides. Cole couldn't believe it. He had missed it all while he hid from ghosts. The galaxy had begun to heal. He walked through the ship's corridors, each one glowing softly like veins of light. He saw humans and Zyrans working side by side, doctors, engineers, translators. When they saw him, they didn't salute or glare. They nodded, curious but kind. One human officer even recognized his name. "Sergeant Cole Renner? The Steel Line?" the man asked, surprised. Cole gave a faint smile. What's left of it. Later, the Zyran medic approached him again. She placed a hand over her chest, their gesture of respect. "The hatchlings are orphans," she said. Their parents were from the colony destroyed on Draxia Prime. Cole's stomach turned, remembering the images the hatchlings had shown him. Fire, chaos, loss. "They have chosen you as their protector," the medic continued. Cole blinked. "Chosen me?" "They do not bond easily," she said gently, "but they see you as one of their own. Their minds link with yours. You are part of their family now." Cole sat down. Stunned, he looked at the 3 hatchlings playing near the window. Their soft laughter echoed across the room. He whispered, "Family." The word felt strange on his tongue, but right. For the first time in years, it didn't sound painful. That night, Cole stood at the observation deck. The stars spread before him like a field of diamonds. He leaned against the glass, feeling peace wash over him. The hatchlings curled up beside his boots, Purring softly, he whispered, "You know, once I thought the universe was full of monsters." He smiled faintly. "But maybe it's full of children just trying to survive." A soft voice came from behind him. The medic again. "You are different, human soldier," she said. "Many carry hate for generations. You chose mercy." Cole didn't look back, he said quietly. "Maybe mercy was the only thing I hadn't tried." The woman nodded and stepped closer to the window. "Your war is over, Cole Renner," she said. "But their future begins because of you." Cole looked down at the hatchlings. Safe. Glowing, full of life, he smiled, whispering to himself, "Then maybe that's enough." Outside, the ship glided through the stars behind them. The wreckage of old battles drifted away into darkness. Ahead, the promise of new worlds, new beginnings, and in that soft light, a broken soldier finally found what he'd been missing all along. Not revenge, not victory, but peace. The Lyrian dawn drifted through space like a silver bird. Its lights shimmered softly against the dark ocean of stars. Inside, the corridors buzzed with quiet life, humans and Zyrans moving together, speaking in a mix of two languages once divided by war, but far from the noise and movement. In a quiet observation room, Cole Renner stood alone, hands resting on the glass, eyes lost among the stars. He had been aboard the ship for many weeks now. His burns had healed, his strength had returned. But something deeper had also changed. The constant ache in his chest, the bitterness that lived inside him. It was fading, not gone, but softer, like an old wound that no longer bled. The hatchlings were growing fast. Every morning, they raced through the halls, leaving faint trails of blue light behind them. They mimicked the humans they saw, trying to salute, trying to walk upright. Sometimes they even carried small tools, pretending to fix things like Cole used to. Their laughter filled the cold metal ship with something warm, something living wherever they went. Smiles followed. Cole couldn't help but watch them like a father. He had stopped denying it weeks ago. They were his responsibility. His family, when he passed the med bay. Crew members nodded and called him Guardian. The title made him uncomfortable at first, but now he carried it with quiet pride. One evening, the ship landed on a small blue moon, a neutral ground shared by humans and Zyrans for rebuilding projects. Cole stepped out of the airlock, the hatchlings following close behind. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of strange flowers and soil that glowed faintly under the light of two suns. For the first time in years, he felt gravity under his boots and wind on his face. He looked across the valley. Construction crews, both species, worked together to build schools. Homes and gardens. He saw children, human and Zyran, running together, laughing without fear. For Cole, it was like looking at a dream he never thought he'd see. He crouched as the hatchlings ran toward a field of glowing plants. They chirped happily, chasing each other, their tiny wings fluttering. Cole smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Go on. You earned it." Behind him, the Zyran medic, now a close friend, and approached quietly. "You should rest, Guardian," she said kindly. Cole chuckled. "Rest? After raising these three?" "Not a chance." She smiled, her eyes gentle. "They will become strong. Because of you." He looked toward the horizon. "Because of them," he said softly. "I stopped being the man the war made me." That night, the colony held a gathering under the open sky. Humans shared old Earth songs. Zyrans sang their harmonic chants. Two sounds blending into one rhythm. Cole sat near the fire, a mug of warm tea in his hands. The hatchlings curled up beside him, half asleep as the flames danced. A young human officer sat next to him. "Sergeant Renner," he began nervously. "I heard stories about you, how you saved those hatchlings, how you fought the drones." Cole shrugged. "Stories always sound better when someone else tells them." The officer smiled. "Still, sir, it's good to know heroes like you still exist." Cole shook his head slowly, his voice low. "Heroes fight to destroy, son. I just fought to protect." The officer was silent for a moment, then nodded, understanding. Cole looked at the stars above. Each one shimmered softly, like memories, lost brothers, fallen friends, battles that no longer mattered. He whispered to the night. "I hope you're all watching, because it's over now." We finally stopped fighting. Days later, when the ship prepared to leave again, Cole visited a quiet place on the moon, a garden surrounded by blue stones. There he placed something small on the soil, a worn metal tag. His old dog tag. He knelt, running a finger over the engraved letters of his name. I carried this through hell, he said softly, but I don't need it anymore. The wind brushed against his hair as if answering him. The hatchling stood beside him. Silent for once, watching, he looked at them and smiled. This is for them, he said, nodding toward the sky. And for you. So you'll remember where you came from? He turned toward the horizon, 2 suns setting side by side, gold and violet. In that light, the hatchlings looked almost human. Small. Curious, full of life, Cole whispered. I promise I'll protect you. No matter where we go. The smallest chirped and climbed onto his shoulder, wrapping tiny claws around his neck. He laughed quietly. Yeah, I know. You're the boss. When the Lyrian dawn lifted off again, Cole stood at the window watching the moon shrink behind them. The stars stretched ahead, countless, endless, full of possibility. The hatchling sat beside him. Gazing out with wonder, he spoke softly. Once, I thought the universe only knew how to break things. He looked at them. But maybe it just needed someone to care enough to fix them. The medic passed by and paused at the door. Where will you go now, Guardian? She asked. Cole smiled faintly. Wherever there's something worth saving, he said. Human or Zyran, doesn't matter anymore. As the ship glided into the dark sea of stars, the hatchlings pressed their tiny hands to the glass, leaving glowing prints like constellations. Cole placed his hand beside theirs. Let's make a better galaxy. Kids, he whispered. Outside, light from distant suns shimmered like candles across the void, and for the first time in his life, Sergeant Cole Renner wasn't running from the past. He was walking toward a future he helped build. The soldier who once despised aliens had become their protector, their father, their bridge, and in that endless sky, among the stars of 2 worlds, the broken soldier finally kept his promise, to protect life, not destroy it.